So I just want to say this, that maybe people stay in toxic relationships for the kids. But if leaving is the best way to protect them, would you leave? If leaving is the best way to protect yourself and them, would you leave? I know that this is a very, it's something that is a very delicate conversation, and we have to look at both sides of the conversation. But on EB Speaks today, my guest Njide Egbuna will unpack this very difficult conversation on staying for the children, or staying for the children versus leaving for the children and for your safety. And this conversation is part of my love and relationship series. And you can check up my last two previous episodes on my podcast and on YouTube. And it's so the first episode is Before You Say I Do, the marriage prep no one tells you about. And when your heart says yes, but when your heart says no, but everyone says yes. But I want to quickly uh, issue this disclaimer that we're not advocating divorce, and we're here to prevent it as much as possible. So if you're about to get married or you are in a relationship, this conversation is for you. So, welcome to EB Speaks, and I am your host, Ibinabo Enebi. And on EB Speaks, I feature everyday people like you and me whose stories and expertise serve as streetlights and survival kits for those coming behind us. So, Injideka, welcome to EB Speaks.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor, and I am so blessed and happy to be here. And I want to honor you for what you do on this platform and
Thank
for
you.
being a worthy vessel. I want to honor you for your consistency, you know. It's not easy, you know. You
I
don't
know,
play.
right?
Yeah, so take your flowers. Well done.
Thank you. I
Happy
receive
Mother's
it. I
Day.
receive it. Thank you. I
Well
receive it.
done. Well done.
So,
Doing good.
so much. So, let me start by, uh, well, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Oh,
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. So, Injideka describes herself as a dealer in faith, hope, and a prisoner of God's grace and mercy. She is compassionate about sharing wisdom nuggets using the power of storytelling. Njideka has over 15 years of cognate experience in counseling young adults and mature singles. She is a contributing writer for The Effectual, a widely read magazine that helps women discover and live the purpose. She's a compare for global events and a former co-host of an online program which with a reach that spans different countries on a weekly basis. Njideka loves life, connecting with people, embracing new opportunities. Her first book, Reflections, was published in 2024, and she's a proud mom of two incredibly amazing young adults. Fantastic. Did you bring a book?
I didn't actually.
But if we want to buy, if somebody is interested in buying the book, where would they get it?
It's on Amazon and it's just
Okay.
for Reflections by Njide Egbuna. It's on Amazon. Um, and just for context, so that book was 2 years in the writing, and it was 20, I think it was 2020 or 2021, December. I just had this
Yeah.
leading, I just says this leading to do a daily nugget, a daily wisdom nugget over 31 days in December.
Hmm.
I was like, how? I didn't really trust myself for the project. But that's the thing, that's the amazing thing. As soon as I did the first day, second day, somehow the wisdom was coming for 31 days in December. So it kind of reads like a devotional, but it's like nuggets. And then 2 years
Oh,
later, I just felt that sense, right, compile that into a book and get it published. And that's where we are.
I have been trying to write a book. My husband has been begging me to write a book for a very long time.
Should do.
But I'm like, oh, gosh,
Start small.
how
Start with 31 days of something. Because
I don't know.
people just like to do like TikTok mentality, isn't it? People just flip, 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 quick, quick. So something quick and just start.
I don't
You can
know.
do it.
I can't make that commitment right now. I wouldn't say I would. Okay. So I would start by asking you this question. And
Right.
you have been counseling young women and young
Right.
mature adults for a while, for 15 years. And that's not cheesecake. That's a lot. What would you say is one of the most recurrent decimals that women or mature adults experience?
I think the number one is not knowing how powerful they are in their own, not and not owning the totality of who they are, right? Um, as women, especially in our community, in the Black community, there's been so many narratives that we listen to, be it culture, be it tradition, whatever it is. And we have grown up with those mindsets all mixed up. So by the time we get older, we kind of lose sight of how powerful we are, of how gifted and talented that we are. Because a lot of women, they're focused on looking after other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're so focused in whatever variation, maybe family, maybe in the workplace. And then there's this statement that I've come to like, look, we really said that black don't crack, and we own it, we take it on board, like Odogu, black don't crack. Meanwhile, underneath, a lot of people have self-doubt, they're questioning, some are being suppressed. So one common narrative is there's power in you. You are gifted. You have a gift. You have a talent. You just have to steward it, process it, and show the world what you have. Is that once they own their power, oh my gosh, they're unstoppable. They're unstoppable.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that for me, I feel that one of the things, because I'm a woman, I'm a mom like you are,
Mm,
and I really, what you're saying, I understand because, and this is the way I coined it. I said we get lost in the translations of the roles that we play and the duties that we perform. So we are always at the bottom of the stack
mm,
because we forget who we are because we're always caring for other people,
absolutely.
so we get lost in the translation. That girl that had dreams, that girl that
Mm,
had a vision of who she wanted to be,
mm,
gets lost in the translation. This is what I put: get lost in the translation of the roles that she plays. Why? Because you want to you want to perform. You want to be a good mother. You want to be a good wife. You want to be a good sister.
yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's not
Absolutely.
always easy
No,
to do that. It's not
no,
always easy to do that.
no,
Yeah.
not at all.
Okay. So I came across something that you wrote on Facebook. And of course, you're a storyteller and you wrote a very interesting story on Facebook. And I was like, you know what? This story too sweet. I beg, sister, come, tell us. I was like, there was something in it because I always I read everything you write. That most of the things you write, I
Oh,
read. Yes, I
really?
do.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
I like the way. I like when you wrote about dyeing your hair. I like the way you talk about something that happened in the bus stop and all that. So it's very
Oh,
interesting. But when you wrote this one, and I love the way you use the pictures. Like you
um,
put a picture, like the one that, like this one, you said, I have friends in high places. So my friend returned from Nigeria and sent for me. I was expecting small packet of groundnut kai, so you
Yes.
had a lot. But this is what you wrote that got to me. You said, I went through a very messy divorce over 10 years ago.
Right.
The
Yeah.
child support section of the document was to become the breaking point. That was until I told my solicitor to delete that section completely. I still remember my solicitor's hesitation. She knew my financial situation and that I didn't have two pennies to rub together.
Yeah.
Do you have a secret trust fund somewhere that you have not declared? More importantly, she didn't want me to make a decision I would regret. But then I had a job, and more importantly, I had a conviction that God is with me, even in my flaws and my mess. The truth is, sorry, the truth is, peace comes at a cost. We are joint custodians of our destinies. When you say, I am staying in this toxic relationship for my children, yes, he is reworking my face on a regular, but children need their father or their mother, or for financial reasons. I pray we also recognize that sometimes those who those are the very reasons to leave. When you talked about reworking my face on a regular, but children need their father or their mother, my heart just went, wow, you know. So I'm going to start by asking you this question. If you had to think about the whole process that you went through in terms of getting involved in the relationship and in the marriage, what were the things that, stepping back and looking now, the 2020 vision,
Mm.
hindsight, that you would have caught and you'd have said, no, 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 this thing is a red flag. And in this conversation, we're talking to a girl, a young girl, or a young guy who is in a relationship, who wants to get married, but they are experiencing or they're noticing some things that they're like, hmm. Well, you know how we are now. People would say, in our culture, they will say, just marry now. You're not
Yeah.
getting any younger, just marry.
Yeah.
So tell me,
Yeah.
what were some of the things that if you had known, you would
Yeah.
have said, I'm not doing?
Okay, so I always share experientially.
Yeah,
So I want people to listen, but with open hands, right? Because it's based on my experience and the experience of people that I've come in contact with. So for me personally, the red flags were there. Let me just be honest, right? The
hmm,
red flags were there. We all have, as we get older, we know our non-negotiables in life. There's certain things that you say to yourself, nah, this one is a non-negotiable, right? Those are the ones who put hashtag never. Although, yeah, we know our non-negotiables. Yeah.
yeah,
However, like you rightly said, all the issues okay, so I got married quite late by the standard of my culture. And for a woman, I got married at 29. At 29, I had finished education. I'd got 2 degrees. I've got my own home, right? And I was the first child, right? And then my parents didn't really put pressure on me, but there were all the energy around you is like, when now? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? You're 29, no, you have your own house, you got degrees, you look so independent, men are not coming, just marry. And
hmm,
so, yes, even like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine lately, and she's saying the same thing that when people introduce her to people, she's asking them questions. They say, just enter first, But there's this medal trophy about getting into a marriage. So when it came to that, I had my non-negotiables. I had them in front of me, and there were things that happened before the engagement. And in hindsight, that was God actually warning me, right? That was God saying, this thing you're stepping into. You get as it be, you know? But see, we're human, aren't we? We kind of camouflage things and they will change. I can manage it, I can be flexible, all those kind of excuses we give ourselves. So for me, the red flags were already there. Some of my non-negotiables, I didn't take them off. So I stepped in with the red flags, right? So anybody getting married now, I mean, I have the eye of experience and the eye of a journey. So I can kind of say this. At the same time, I would not hold court for anybody that would listen and say, you're just talking because yours is so you've done it, you've done that. Let me experience marriage. But I always say to people, like when I counsel women, I say, you have your non-negotiables, right? The things that if someone did this to you, you say no, you're not going to like it. Make sure that for me, because I'm a person of faith, make sure that you go to God. I say, these are my non-negotiables, but I will take who you've ordained for me. But so I always say to them, have your non-negotiables and try as much as possible, no matter the level of pressure, no matter how good looking, no matter what, all those physical things that we like, no matter how beautiful it is, make sure that you are not going to be the weapon fashioned against yourself by going against your non-negotiables. Because further down the line, you are going to regret it. And better a broken relationship, a broken engagement than a broken marriage. So looking back, yes, have your non-negotiables and make sure that you're working in accordance with your non-negotiables, no matter what age. It's so important because you're entering into a lifetime covenant, contract, whatever you call it, right? So yeah, so that's what I always tell them. That's my
Your non-negotiables.
yes.
And there's something you said here that shows that you're a writer. You said you're speaking from the eye of experience and the eye of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly say to my audience that you can be a part of this conversation by leaving your comments in the comments section below. And you can also ask my guest questions at the end of the conversation. So, but then if you're too shy, just leave your comments. If you're watching via Zoom, in the comment box, and Njideka would answer your questions. So now you had your non-negotiables.
Right.
And in this conversation, we have an avatar. The avatar is a young girl
Right.
or somebody who feels pressured to get married, and there is somebody that has come and she has her non-negotiables, but then this person is crossing the line.
Mm.
What are the specific red flags which people should recognize that indicate that a relationship may be toxic or unsafe?
Okay.
Or do they hide that you don't even know, that you can't even tell?
I was just about to say that. So let me using your avatar, let me tell it. I tell stories, right? I
Yeah,
tell
I
stories.
do.
I
I
love to
know.
tell stories. So there's a lady I worked with who is now she's gone into a different country. So before she got married, she met someone, he met all her, ticked all her boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, just to cut a long story short, one of the things she said to me during when we were working together, she said, Auntie, as soon as we married, few months after, he started to smoke. He did not smoke throughout the time we were dating, but somehow, Auntie, he was coming home reeking of smoke, reeking of alcohol. Auntie, he did not drink throughout the time we were dating, right? And those were her non-negotiables. So I say that because some people hide it really well until they get into the relationship and suddenly it's like we've already entered. That is one side. So let's park that, right? Just keep that to the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
Also remember that we're all different. This is such a complex question for me, and I don't think I'm going to do it justice. I worked with someone who she said that the day her husband stopped to beat her was the day she retaliated and beat him back. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, if he beats her, do they have this physical thing going? And to me, that's no that's one of. But do you understand where I'm going with it? So, but that is says if he beats me, I'll beat him back. It's okay. We'll make up either week. And I'm like, hello, is that normal? Right? So everybody has to, but also I recognize that for things like that, you only do life based on how you were raised. But perhaps that is hard. I remember one of your guests, I think it was the first guest that was actually said something similar.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, the marriage psychologist,
yeah,
therapist.
people can only do life based on what they know. So to her, maybe that's both their background. What if you end up marrying somebody who does not like Musbas? You know, where does that lead you? So for me, for me personally, so but it just so happens she met somebody. But also, we're going to talk about the impact on children later on, because there's an impact
Mm.
on that kind of dynamics. It's toxic for a child. For me personally, speaking for myself, my non-negotiables was any kind of abuse, physical, emotional, mental, psychological, any form of abuse, that it becomes habitual, right?
Mm.
Because people can
Mm.
get angry when they're stressed and say something off the cuff, all right, move on. But when it becomes habitual, when it becomes a regular habit, right, to try and suppress you, to try and make you feel less than, to try and make you doubt yourself as a human being, as a woman, to belittle you in any shape or form, in public or private, that is a no-no.
Okay. Now, I just want to ask you this question.
Right,
In our culture,
right.
and there's this thing that is going up, that's going up and down, and we're saying that our mothers
Hmm.
stayed in their relationships. Our
Yeah.
mothers, for the sake of the children, the mothers stayed. Mm. And that's why they stayed, they endured, and that's why the percentage of broken homes
Hmm.
is is less.
Right.
But I want to ask you this question. What effect, I don't know, is there any wisdom, or is it that for staying that the man changes? The man doesn't change, no? So what's the benefit of staying? So that's where the question comes in. Leaving or staying? We want to maintain the traditional, or of course we all know that it's important, the marriage is important,
Yeah.
but what is the benefit of staying in a toxic relationship or a toxic marriage when it demeans you mentally, emotionally, and psychologically?
Okay, so I hear that a lot. We are staying for the children. And sometimes that is a way of not dealing with the problem. I am sorry if that comes across as a bit harsh and insensitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a way of not dealing with the problem on ground. That might be because the woman or man, some men are in abusive relationships from the wives. I've met a few, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. They have been so beaten in the sense of physical, emotional, mental, that they haven't got the headspace to process the journey of leaving. Does that make sense? So it's like
Yeah.
you, you're just tired. It's like somebody who has been doing the same job for 30 years, 40 years. They hate the job, right? But they don't have the confidence to leave, but they hate where they are because the mind has been so entangled, all kinds of thoughts, and you're just moving from day to day, revolving door. And they just sit there. I'll give you an example about our Mother's Day, right? Because during the time when my early years of parenting with the Holy Spirit, I always say I parent with the Holy Spirit, I don't parent alone. And that's another thing about reframing your story, but we'll probably come to that later on. I met quite a few of our mothers in my church. And I remember one, she was so dedicated to her husband, right? And she loved it. Well, she loved her husband to bits. She really did. And then her husband died. She nursed her husband and he sadly passed. And she breathed a sign of relief in front of me. I was like, Auntie, you're meant to be, grieving. Your husband just says, let me breathe. That only her children know what she went through in the 40 odd years, right?
So she was keeping up appearances,
She's
keeping up
giving,
with appearances.
yes, yes. There is a wiring that goes on within our community. You know that thing about the woman is meant to maintain the home, but there are two people in the home now. Why is it only the woman that is meant to maintain the home? And then you have things where even in our church community, because I've had that, I speak to women, they come to me where they will go to their leaders in church and say that their husband is beating them up or whatever. And the first question is, what did you do?
What did you do?
They did, somebody's beating you. And your first question to me is, what did I do to deserve the beating? Why should a grown-up feel that the only way they can resolve an issue is to be hitting another human being who they promised to love till death do us part, who they've shared the bed with, who's been intimate with, birth children? So because they did not have that support, I think that's why most of our mothers stayed, right? There's that cultural mindset that the woman builds the home, right? I remember writing about, because I'm quite open about being a divorcee. It's not, I think that God redeemed me for a purpose. And there's just, it comes with such a shame factor within our community. And somebody now wrote on my post that she's not sure that married women, that divorced women will make heaven. And I thought that was an interesting comment because I'm like, but I did not divorce myself now. How come it's only divorced women that will not make heaven? What about the man that's so there is that mindset that is on the woman that a marriage succeeding or failing. No, if they succeed, the man must have done something, but somehow it fails, it's the woman. There's that, it tilts towards the woman. And that is why a lot of our mothers stayed. Now, the story you read at the beginning was actually inspired by a conversation I had with a woman who is in a very abusive relationship for the past 10 years, and it just keeps getting worse, right? And he does it in front of the children. And she shared with me that after the last time that he went for her, her son came up and hugged her and said, Mom, I am so sorry that you're having to go through all of this, right? So I
Mhm.
said to her, your son did that. She said, yeah. So how does that make you feel? She said, and she was like, the tears were rolling. So there's a child. So I'm saying, but so you're not staying for that child. If you give that child a choice, they would not want to be in that situation. So sometimes we stay because, or a mother stayed, what will society say, right? The stigmatization, the shame that you could not keep together your home. Do you understand? Some people do not have support network around them, right? And there's a lady in our community, I don't know, and she passed on a few years ago. And I recall that she used to go back home whenever her husband was abusive, she'd run back to her home, to her parents' home. Her parents would send her back after a while. She was eventually beaten to death and she died. Maybe we buried her and and life moved on. So it's a
And he
whole
remarried.
hmm?
He remarried.
Yeah.
He's remarried.
He's remarried. They always remarry. The men always remarry. Oh. Most of the men always remarry. They always remarry. They always remarry. Because there's that thing about, so there's just this pressure on women. There's you have to maintain a presence. Do you understand? And then that, in within our communities, within the Christian community, divorce is what God hates divorce, the big one. Hey, God hates divorce. But nobody has actually gone to understand why God hates divorce. I remember when I heard that ministration many years ago, before I got divorced, I went to my pastor and said, God hates divorce. Because like God hates divorce. So in people's mind, that reads, I am going to hell. Because you know, I think within the Christendom,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah.
And then it was my pastor that broke it down. My pastor said the reason why God hates divorce is because there is a breakage, it's a covenant, and there's a breakage, there's pain, there's anguish involved in the process. Divorce is not easy. I am telling you, ask and most divorced women within our community. Nobody woke up one day and just, oh, I don't really like this marriage today. I go divorce this man. No. I know like no one would do that. Somebody described divorce as an amputation.
Hmm.
And it's true, it's an amputation. So it's painful, it's a process. The healing process is long. And you always remember. But now you have to look at that amputated leg or limb or whatever and ask yourself, there are two options. If I hadn't done this, I would not live. Or because of I did this amputation, that's why I am alive. So because there's always a remembrance, there's always something that to remind you that you took this course of action. So it's not an easy course of action to take. Nobody wakes up and decide. You have it's and the healing process is long. But think about our wedding now, how we prepare for wedding. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
hey now, all the ashebi. You know, our weddings are grand, they're elaborate. Thank you. And then a few years down the line, it's like you want to, why? So we don't necessarily prepare for the marriage as much as we prepare for the wedding. That's another thing.
Oh, okay. See, I'm going to ask you, we don't hold on necessarily prepare. And I said that in one of the episodes, prepare for the marriage
Yeah,
as much as we prepare for the wedding. And we're going to talk about how to prepare for marriage
yeah.
because it's important. Now, I want
Yeah.
to ask you a question about the children.
Okay.
I watched something on YouTube 2 days ago, and I wish that I unwatched it.
Oh,
It was a CCTV camera in a shop,
right.
and the video just popped up to me. A man, I think I don't know, it's an Asian country. The woman had two boys, and the man went to the shop. I think it was a shop, and he just started beating this lady. I think he pushed her,
Mm,
and I think she passed out. I don't know if she died. If you see the way the boys were crying, the younger boy was crying. He was just at the counter there, and the older boy ran to his mother. And the man had pushed, I think she hit her head or something. And now the man was trying to touch her, and the boy was like, told his father to stop. He was trying to protect his mother. I pray that woman didn't die, but you could see the
yeah.
fear in
Mm,
their eyes.
mm.
Boy was
Oh
crying because
gosh.
I was like, why did I see this thing?
How old were
Now
they?
they were young. I think they're less than 10. If they were too old, 11 and 6 or 7. But you could see the fear in their eyes. After the woman was not talking again now. She the man's eye now cleared. But the boy was like, if that woman died, it was the father that killed his mom.
Yeah,
And I wish I didn't see it, but then this is the reality of a lot of people,
it is.
and it's very painful. So this brings me to the next question.
Yeah.
What? So and this is like it's like it's not controversial, but it is a dilemma. As women, we want to maintain the family structure. We believe that it's good for the father and the mother to be together, and it is,
Yeah.
all things being equal in healthy situations.
Yeah.
But if somebody is experiencing a toxic relationship, what impact does remaining in an abusive relationship have on the children?
How long have you got? Oh, Lord. What impact? So there's something that within the counseling,
Mm-hmm.
within the counseling field, that's called adverse childhood experiences. Right? I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you've ever heard about it. And that basically is talking about children who've been raised in toxic, abusive homes and how to grow up in later life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that depending on the intensity of the abuse, depending on the length of the abuse, they can manifest in so many different ways. And also the body takes a hit. I do a lot of trauma and counseling courses just to keep myself abreast and serve my community better.
Mm-hmm.
And it was talking about the fact that when a child is young, right, and they're in an abusive relationship, remember their brain is still growing. I'm using my hands because there's a description about the brain. The brain is like your face. So the brain is still developing. So on what template are they being raised? They're being raised on unpredictability because they don't know when the boost bus is going to start, do they?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so the brain is being formed with this as a template. This is the way to live. All this anger, even when they're not talking, the energy, energy has a voice, you know
And
that.
it is real. Yeah.
Energy has a voice. So even when there's no physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse, right? So already the growing brain is being polluted with all this nasty, stinky, toxic energy, right? And then they grow up. There's a study that says that children who grew up in abusive relationship are likely to end up with intimate relationship that mirror, that's scary, that mirror the environment that they're in. So when you see girls that are being abused by their boyfriends or their whatever, and they're somehow massaging it, check their background, check where they're coming from, right? I'm going to say something that might trigger some people, but I have to always say before, I and that does not, I'm not saying that because of my family composition, but I rather a child is raised in a one parent home that is peaceful, that is
Yeah.
loving, that they're affirmed. They grow up confident, stronger. They might miss the other part of the parenting, but because they have been taught about love, they've been grown on love, on acceptance, on affirmation, that will help them to cope with absence, with the absentee father or mother, because sometimes it's the mother that leaves and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and then when they grow up, studies have shown that they end up in toxic relationship, they end up substance abuse. That's a coping
That is
mechanism.
that is those people who grew up in toxic relationships.
Yes, yes,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right. They grow up, they might end up with some unhealthy habits, be it sexual, be it addictions,
Sexual deviancies, yeah.
deviances, addictions, right? Because they are trying to cope with what they have witnessed, right? Growing up.
Can I thank you very much for that because what you're saying is so deep. And again, it's for me, it's like a dilemma for me. And let me
Mm,
tell you why it's a dilemma for me. And I'm sure it's a dilemma for a lot of us as well, that we like to present, we know, and you know that as well. But then you touched on something that is very important. It's important for father and mother to bring up a child.
absolutely,
It
absolutely.
is. But we also know that when a child grows up in a toxic relationship, in a toxic family environment, they end up having trauma.
Yeah.
and the trauma presents itself in so many ways.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is better to have a single parent who embodies the love of a father and a mother.
Yeah.
And if you have the support structure of good grandfather, good grandmother, good cousins, good aunts, good uncles, for me, I feel that it's a better way to go
It is.
than
It is.
than to than
It
to
is.
be to say that I must do stay. Then the now panel bit finish, kill you there, buy you there, don't buy. But I want to read some comments here. And guys, please feel free to leave your comments. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and my guest would answer the questions for you. So said exactly, we do not prepare for the marriage as much as the wedding. We need to know that marriage starts before the wedding. So
Yeah.
this is the response of, we don't necessarily prepare for marriage, but we prepare for as much as we do the wedding. And somebody says about the abuse, staying in an abusive relationship, she says, it leads to childhood trauma that keeps manifesting until adulthood, and which causes failed relationships for the individual because the
Absolutely.
brain has been traumatized. This is an expert that is talking. I think if you have to leave with the children if you can, but if not, always stay in contact with your kids. You have to stay alive to be a mother. Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that comment too. I love that you have to stay alive to be a mother. And uh, just for context, it's not an easy journey. It's not an easy decision to make. It's not an easy journey to make. I remember and you have to make that decision yourself unless the support network realizes that your mind has been so messed up that you cannot make those kind of decisions and your life is at risk. And may God, one of my prayers, whenever I pray, because I pray a lot, this is a subject that is very close to my heart, is that God will surround people with the right support network that will be able to yank you gently, say to you, this thing will kill you if you stay here, in a loving way, right? This thing
Yeah.
they've seen, it's not every day you say you fell off the stairs. Come on now. Do you understand? And or your friend is normally they are confident, they're exuberant, and suddenly they start to withdraw. Let me tell you a funny story. This just came to my mind. I'm a storyteller. Let me tell you a funny story.
I know.
So
Oh, what?
let me tell you this story because it still makes me laugh. So, because my head was all over the place and my thing was to look after my children, I woke up
Mhm.
one day and said, "Hey, Njideka, this is your life. Eh? If you continue the way it's going, you're either going to end up dead or you're going to end up sectioned." Those were really the two, what you call it, two outcomes of my situation. I remember
Section as in like mental health.
yes,
Mm.
right? Because I was like, so, but I was like firefighting. And then there was some gaslighting that was going on. A lot of talk was going on around me. But my
So
head was
sorry, when you mean firefighting, for people who don't understand what firefighting means, what is
so
firefighting?
firefighting is when you are just literally putting one leg in front of the other. You are just like focused on what do I do next? What do I do next? Because if anybody asks you about tomorrow, you don't know about tomorrow. You are just like
Mhm.
focused on
Mm.
survival mode, right?
Oh, survival mode. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
So
firefighting is survival mode in the
you're
moment.
yes, in the moment, that's coming against me. Let me deal with it. There's something there. Okay. For now, this is it. So
So
for
you're
us,
chasing your tail constantly,
constantly.
going round in circles, like
Thank you.
roundabouts, round and
Yeah.
round and
So I was focused on the children because I was homeless for a period of time and we lived somewhere out. So I was like focused to get my children to school, to make sure that they were fine in school, they were settled, they were oblivious to what was happening around me. And I was a complete mess, right? We did not have enough money. And I was
a
just
hot mess, according to my daughter.
I was a hot mess, a real hot mess. Honest, I was. So my pastor at the time had heard some rumors that I used to sleep around, all kinds of stuff. But that was part in Igbo culture. The worst thing you can say about your wife is that she sleeps around. Once you say that, table has broken, oh yeah, tell her to her
I
father. I
Aquaquam.
Aye, that is it. That is it. So I heard this story years later. So apparently my pastor heard about it, right? And then asked one of my friends. She's still my friend today, one of my support network. Because she's a big mouth, that one. And I heard that she said so Pastor called her and said, I heard Sister Njide is sleeping around with men. You know, that's part of the reason why her marriage has broken, all that kind of rubbish. So
The
my friend,
gossip.
thank you. So my friend said, when I heard it, I said, I heard that my friend said to Pastor, Pastor, have you looked at Sister Njide recently? You're a man. You that's a man. Look at her. The way she's looking. Will you even touch her? Not
Is she even giving you those side eyes? You know now, I'm she even programmed herself very well.
cute. She said, have you seen her hair? I used to wear wigs, so it was all matted at the back because I just
Mhm.
wake up, yank it, I had to get my children to school. She said, have you seen
Mhm.
her wig? Do you would you even get out? That was how that gossip was killed with Pastor, right? I don't know where so I was just that's funny. So you have to be it's not an easy journey. It's not an easy journey. I always say that. So that's why I love what you said in the flyer that we are not advocating divorce. Divorce is the absolute last what's it called? Absolute last
The
call.
last straw.
The last straw. Right, the last straw. When you have to, and we try, and oftentimes, like I did, we tried everything. My pastor fasted and prayed with us. And everything is fasting and praying in our community. Every little thing, oh, let us fast and pray. As if that's a magic wand.
Can I say something? And this is the
Right.
thing that I like. And when I'm having these conversations, I'll just tell my husband, Lord, this now I don't like about our culture. A lady would have a problem with her husband. She would go and report the husband to his family or to the pastor. Then they would say to her, sometimes I don't know, like it's not, I know you know what I'm saying. Sometimes you would have a problem, you go and tell your mother, be your aunt, or be one auntie that you respect. Then the auntie will now come and sit you down and begin to tell you some stories that you're like, so she's telling you the most horrible things that she experienced, and you're like, so what has this got to do with what I'm saying? So a lot of times it's always about you. And the Bible says wisdom builds a home. Yes, they always expect you to apply the wisdom to build your home without addressing the man.
True.
What? Because I feel that some of these things, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she experienced a very difficult relationship, marriage. And she said all the time, the mother-in-law she would go to the mother-in-law, they would talk to the mother-in-law would talk to her. But talk to the man. Tell him to change. Because I feel that if parents really, really talk to their sons and talk to them, I think that
Mm.
some of these things that people are experiencing, they will not experience. There's this interesting comment here that I want to say. It
Okay.
says here, I'm a total example of this. I experienced this firsthand, and my mother nearly died.
Ooh.
But she had to live for us and for herself. Today, she's back and alive because we have to go bring her back when we were ready. We were still teenagers then, and we have to fight for her to have her place back.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
so I think that the reason why some mothers had to stay was because they didn't have the financial capacity to look after themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also feel that fathers and parents we should begin to rethink these things. Hmm, I don't know, Sha.
Maybe our generation, but not our parents' generation. Although saying that when eventually I made the decision, because I have to make, okay, so I have to make, I made the decision myself. One day, like I was saying, and I remember going down on my knees. I said, God, I can't do this anymore. It's you, me, and these boys, and my children, they were under 5. So, no, they were under 10 by then. They're oblivious to what's happening around them now. And I made a decision. And when I eventually plucked up the courage to tell my dad was like, okay, you're going to need some financial support. Let me know, what you do that. but none of them, no member of my family ever said, leave. Do you understand? Because within our community, it's such a taboo. It's like, you want to divorce. And so what we have is a lot of relationship where both parties are in the home, right? But they've not shared a bed. There's one that I was working with some time ago, 10 years. I'm like, what do you mean you've not slept? 10 years. I was like, are you for real? Are you having me on? She says, no, 10 years. But they live in the same house. The husband would get up, travel, and she will hear from people where he is. They have in the fridge, she has her own corner, he has his own corner in the
And the
fridge.
children are there.
The children are there, right? So it's nobody actually, is such a sensitive topic within our community, all right? And so people would not necessarily, but on the other hand, I also understand why people don't tell you to leave unless your life is in danger. So that when the trouble starts, because once you leave, then you have to decide, all right, what do I do now?
Yeah.
You have to now recreate your life, right? So that when the trouble starts, you know your why for leaving. And you're not going to be running back to vomit or fire because you know that this is why I left. So let me try one step in front of the other to rebuild my life for myself and my children. So going back to your thing about why they don't talk to the whenever there's an issue in a home, they talk to the woman, the wife, they don't talk to the husband. Now you know why our mother stayed. Because again, the marriage is on them. And they know that. I'll give you another example. There's a lady I was working with, and she said that she would take the matter to her parents died really early, right? So she got married. So her in-laws were pastors. They were husband and wife, her in-laws, they pastor the church. And when she took it to them, right, she said, this is what your son is doing, no? The father-in-law would say, wisdom, a wise woman builds her home. Go and build your home. Her mother-in-law would say, he's sleeping with other women. It's okay. My husband used to do that. It's not a big deal. These are pastors, oh. My sister, my jaw fell on the floor. And I said, what? Repeat that again. And the pastor said, it's not a big deal. It's okay. Go back, go manage, build your home. And then coming back to network, it's so important to have, even if you have one person that is holding you accountable, supporting you, it's so important. She didn't have a network of supporters because her friends were like, we're facing the same thing. You're not the only one. So it's like, so that's why our mother said, who do they talk to? Who are you going to talk to? Who do you take your matter to? Because you know they're going to tell you manage now. Be managing for the sake of the
And
children. Manage.
meanwhile, it's see, okay. Now I have this somebody asked this question. She said, how do you help a woman who is going through traumatic experience? You've given her options on how to live her life after she called you she's leaving, but later she said she would stay, even when she's now hypertensive.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a difficult one. There's something in social care because I was so that talks about somebody who has capacity to make a decision. And then you can
Mhm.
only take someone so far, and then you have to withdraw and continue praying for them, right? What I think the questions around you have to approach such people with, if you have the patience to continue not supporting them because that'll be enabling, but what are her reasons for backtracking on herself? Are there any reasons that she's given? Do you understand? To say, okay, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave. Okay, I'm not going to leave, I'm going to leave. Because it's not easy to leave. It's not easy to make that decision to leave. It is not easy,
It's
right?
like snatching yourself away from the familiar.
Exactly. You have to.
Okay.
It is not an easy journey. I have to keep saying that because so that people would know that it's not discouraging, but people know that this is the last option. It is not an easy journey. So some people are not there yet where they can make that transition, right? And that's where, for me personally, prayer comes into the equation. Because even when I had made the decision and the process has started, I still have people. I remember somebody ringing me up and trying to give me a book on what happens to children from divorce homes. And I said, and and then they approached my parents why I had to go back. And then my mother, well, I heard about it later on, it was my mother that told one of the in-law side that were advocating for me to stay. My mom got upset because my mom is really calm and quiet, but somehow when it comes to her children, she's fiery. My mom does not have any siblings. So we're her siblings, we're her children. I think my mom,
Everything.
yes, because eight of her siblings died during the Nigerian Biafran War. So
Hmm.
yeah, so we are all she's got. So I heard that my mom now, when they were pleading, my mom now said to the in-laws, if you have a daughter or a sister and she's going through what my daughter is going through, will you tell her to stay? That was when the matter just ended. That was the man could not answer.
I have some questions I have to ask you, a lot of questions.
That was when it ended. So you need, it's very, even if it's one person, it's so important. So for the person asking this question, may I please plead with you to not give up on her, gently keep holding her hands, understand her journey to an extent. There must be a reason why. I have a few in my community that are on medication, antidepressants, like
I
hypertensive
noticed.
yeah, medication, but they're still in the marriage, right? And whenever I have in my mind, I would never tell anybody to say, leave your home. I would never do that. You have to make that decision yourself. In my mind, I'm like, for the sake of your own health and your own children, you really need to leave this environment, even if it's a temporary thing, until somehow you cleanse your mind and recreate your mental well-being to now make a decision. So just keep encouraging her, allow her space to, rather than holding court, extend more grace because it is not an easy journey at all. And each situation is different. You don't know you just don't know where somebody is. Um,
Yeah, and I think that, well, I don't know, but I just like, of course I'm on my fifth floor, so I've seen things, right? I feel that sometimes some women go through the storm and eventually things calm down.
mm,
Eventually the guy gets older, or maybe things calm down, maybe he gets sick, and then things calm down, and eventually the abuse is reduced. And but I feel that even at that situation would always also have an influence on the children, no
yeah.
matter what,
And the woman,
on the woman as well.
trauma,
Yeah.
trauma. A lot of women are dealing with trauma, like trauma that you can't even begin to describe. So I hear you about the women, the men that get older, maybe they're diagnosed with some illness or the other. The
Hmm.
body, the body takes the hit for trauma, right? So the man gets sick, the woman now feels obligated to
To
be a
look after
care,
him.
to look after him. But she's not doing it out of a volition, out of love. It's a duty, right? And then eventually, because he hasn't got the physical ability or the mental capacity to inflict any more harm on her, everything is kind of settled, right? And then he passes on. I have a situation, that one kind of shook me up a bit, gave me the shivers. So they were married for a long time. The man passed on. She kind of nursed him till he passed on. And then she came to suggest to me that her children say they will never get married. I said, Auntie, why? She said, because of what they witnessed between their parents. She has 4 children, and they said they would rather have children out of wedlock. But you know that thing called marriage? They say they ain't doing it.
Mm.
But here's the thing, there's a kicker. The husband never lifted hand on her for one day. But the toxicity, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse, the energy in the home, and the children are like, we're not, no.
Can I tell you something? Something happened to me one time. So there's this lady that I know, well, somebody, and her husband died. And as per say, your husband died, sorry. So I was just walking. It was, I think he died during that COVID. Anyway, he died. So as per the lady is my friend, well, somebody that I'm acquainted with. And then I saw her on the road and said, so sorry to hear about your husband's death. You know what she told me? She's not telling me sorry. She said, she's not Nigerian. She said, I feel relieved. I said, I said, tell me more. I can follow you go your house. Give me this story.
Yeah.
She said, whenever that now, since the man passed away, she can go home and breathe. She can just relax and she has peace. I say, Ezioku. She said, yes. That she not tell her story, that her life is better off that the man was dead. So how can, but then she couldn't leave because again, but she's not African. But the thing is, again, there is this trap. I don't know if it is a trap because marriages still work. Marriages are still successful. But I think that the time has come for us to have this honest conversation, and fathers should begin to protect their children. Now, I want to ask this question: how do we prepare for marriage? Because a lot of times we prepare for the wedding without the marriage.
Yeah.
So how do we prepare for marriage? And I know that okay, I'm asking you this. The first episode I had on this conversation was a marriage counselor.
Yeah.
So maybe if you really want to find out more, you can watch it
I
on
watched it. It's a
EBC.
great interview. Yeah. I recommend it, guys. Watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, but quickly from your own experience.
Yeah. So how do we prepare? We prepare prayerfully.
Okay.
You prepare, if you're a person of faith, prepare prayerfully. I'm a person of faith. God does not have a timeline. It's us that have all this timeline. Within our culture, we go to say you have that map, don't we? You go to primary school, secondary school, university, masters, whatever, get a job, get married, have babies, and then the cycle continues. If you can recognize that God does not have a cycle like we do, so you take it to God in prayer, and then you try and reprogram your mindset to think that I am enough. Because sometimes we're trying to marry because we want something. You want to have a missus. Look, even it's a trophy, isn't it? To missus somebody. And I say this with all sense of humility to those in Nigeria, because I have friends in Nigeria who I have a friend of mine whose husband was in Nigeria for a short season of time, and they needed accommodation. So he handed everything over to her to do because he was busy. And can you believe that everywhere they sourced for accommodation, they wanted to see her husband? And she was like, why? He's giving me the permission. I am the wife. We married many. So there's this respect accorded to married women within our community. And so you find that people want maybe for the smoothness of for things to happen, or to have that sense of respect, that sense of belonging, for promotion, to whatever, to become Mrs. If we can get to a place where you say to yourself, look yourself in the mirror and say, I am enough, right? If I marry tomorrow, if I marry next year, and that's a really good template to start with, because now that takes off the pressure of marrying just for the sake of marrying, like some of us did,
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
takes
writing.
that takes off some of the pressure. So come from a place of I am enough, right? I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Right. That's such a good place to be. And then surround yourself with like-minded people. Right. Not people who are also in a rush to get married, because the environment that you're in matters so much. The community that you're in matters so much. So being in an environment where, if you are in an environment where people are speaking the same thing you're speaking, like, we okay, right? And then, of course, I go back to the non-negotiables. Take your non-negotiables and to God. Know what you can compromise on, what is definitely a no-no for you. right?
Don't it be that your own you two have high standards, eh? We just kind of high
Have,
standard,
and
and
so what's wrong with high standard?
nobody will
Have high
marry you.
standards. Don't settle. Because
And
all
they will
this,
say, they're not gonna marry you, your own too much. Nobody's perfect.
all this nonsense that happens, sorry to use that word, is because women especially are settling. A lot of women settle. It says, like you said, so that they won't say my own is too much. Like, that time I had finished, I had 2 degrees, I had my first degree, I had a master's degree, I had a home. It's like the peak will be very lean for you because men will look at you
Exactly.
and
Because
think,
some will say they even buy house, said they even dress well,
yes,
said.
don't even dress well. Why should you not dress well? But I suspect that this generation is rewriting that script. I see young girls, right? And in my circle, like, when am I going to come and wear a shebi for your head? I say, Auntie, please, 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 Auntie. And these are like women who have got jobs in the city. Some of them have finished a first degree, going on to do a second degree. They are confident, they're comfortable. I say, please, Auntie. So I think they're rewriting the script. And that is a good thing. But we also need balance. So prepare, ask all the questions. Ask questions about, get to know this person you're married. Ask questions. And because I don't think women ask enough questions before they say I do, right?
Mm.
Ask questions about your finances. How do you manage finances? Yeah. I, I have people who are marrying, who are getting married, people of a different faith. You're a Christian, tongue talking. You fast 30 days, you do all the church thing, then you go and marry a Muslim. How far? Because time is passing you by. Or what exactly?
And this is just to say that we have different faiths, so
Yeah.
we cannot
Yeah. So initially I'm
yeah.
like, because you have to answer, Mrs. So I have all the questions. How do you feel about intimacy? You understand? Ask the certain question that women don't ask. Have those conversations with
Like what?
them. Questions about money. You need to know money is not everything, obviously. But by the time you've gone out on it,
I have money specialists coming in to talk about
oh,
money.
see, that's a good, I'm going to have to listen to that and encourage everybody getting married to listen to that. What's your savings culture? What's your savings habit? What's your spending habit? What's your investment habits? Right? Who are your friends? The person you're going to marry, who are their friends? Who do they hang out with? Right? Are they people who they just go out and eat in Kwabi and drink stuff? Are they people who, when they go out, they talk about life-changing things?
Women or things.
Yes. All those kind of things. What are your expectations in this relationship? Talk about things around children. How many children would you like? What have deep conversations and not say,
Hmm.
okay, just because you want to get married. Okay, I really want to have 4, but he wants 2. So okay, I want to marry him. He looks like potential. Okay, we can come back. You're not going to be happy. Come on, let's face it.
Deep conversations.
Deep,
Okay.
deep
Now,
conversations.
sister, maybe you go come back for this thing.
It
We'll
is
go look at
well.
it. Okay. So I want to ask this question. So just give me a minute. Thank you for that. I want to ask this question. So how do you avoid then? How do you avoid toxic relationships before marriage? It's by planning for the marriage first,
Yeah.
planning for the marriage instead of the wedding.
Thank you. Like somebody
So
said, planning for the marriage. But I love what the young people are doing now. It might be a big counterculture, but I love it. And what some of the weddings I'm being invited to, they actually insist that you respond. And the reason being is that they take a head count and they put name plates at the wedding. And that they're managing the budget. But before now, you send one person one invite, they'll drag 10 other people. I'm like, and so you know,
I want to read this thing that somebody said. She said there are many premarital trainings like domestic abuse, violence, trauma-informed care, counseling, and so on that our youth can engage with to become
mm,
self-aware and enlightened.
yeah,
This seminars like this is one. And Latifa, you're going to come on EB Speaks to talk about trauma. She's a trauma-informed specialist.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
That she's going to come and talk about trauma. Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask you this question. So, when do we fight for a marriage, and then when do we walk away?
Ooh. Okay, so going back to the fact that everybody have different standard and different expectations in marriage, right? I remember someone saying to me that doesn't matter what my husband does. Even if I hear my husband has a son today or daughter outside of marriage, it's okay. We'll still say nothing. We die here, right? And like I said to you, there's another lady that, they do both bars. It's like they're actually physically, but that's fine. So when is I keep saying this, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, like a broken record now, but you need to know what are your non-negotiable. For some people, extramarital affair is not a big deal to them. It's okay. When he finishes, he'll come back home. Do you understand? But for me, that's really scary because you're all kinds of mixing spiritual and mixing with all kinds of things. But he'll come home. So that's not a deal breaker for them. So you have to choose. For me, like I said, the deal breaker is any form of abuse. So what are your deal breakers? So when it comes like an abuse that is habitual on a regular basis, day in, day out, nah, man, you've got to check in with yourself and say, the outcome of this, where this is going, ain't gonna end well, right? So that was my deal breaker over a long period of time, over a long period of praying and fasting, over a long period of they do you, they reconcile, they say, okay, I'm sorry, they do you. And it just continued. I'm like, and then when you are, they end up, they're doing all of that stuff, but you're also the one that is financially carrying the family. One person.
Okay.
One person care. So you need to know what your deal breakers are, and that's a journey for everyone to go to go to. Look at that singer that died. She'll come out and she'll perform beautifully, and we'll love her and hail her. Nobody abuse was not a deal breaker for her for whatever reason, and she ended up dying. So you need to know what your deal breaker is, and that's a journey that you have to go with yourself, with God, and with people around you. And let me just say this, right? If there's one thing I want people to take away from this conversation, is that God is for us all. Whether married, whether divorced, whether mature, single, wherever you are, God is for us all. As long as we hand him our broken pieces, we hand him and say, Lord, take over. If he wasn't, Rahab, hey, premium runs girl, premium. Her home was right at the strategic spot for things to be happening. She would not be in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. If God was not for us all, what's his name again? Oh, Timothy, raised by two women, would not be mentioned, would not have two books to his name. I'm a person of faith, so I always reference Bible. And God knows we're going to mess up before we messed up. Anyhow. So whether you choose to leave, whatever decision you're making, one thing for me, people to take away, is that God loves everyone, no matter where you are. God loves
Okay.
you.
Now, I want to read this input by
Okay.
one of our audience. It says, this is quite long. So it says here, before you said that you say I do, pay attention to how the other person treats their sisters and brothers, even people outside.
Absolutely.
Never ever think those character exhibitions are just mere anger, something they are dominant. Sometimes they are dominant behavior.
Absolutely. I
Somebody
agree.
also said, I love this. I love this. Ask questions. I asked a guy we were dating back then when I was in a higher institution and he was a WIAC holder if he would further his education in the future, in the near future. And he answered me outrightly that he can't. And I asked why, and he said he has many siblings and he would be taken care of. And I sensed problem and stagnancy and told him that the courtship can't work together. That was over 20 years ago. He got married before me, and I saw him 20 years ago, and we discussed, and I felt sorry for him. And somebody said, may our children not say yes to a beautified Lucifer.
Amen.
Okay, so I want to ask this question. So, and I know that we're not advocating divorce, but
Never
if your life is in danger,
get out. At
at
least
what point?
separate. At least separate. If you're not going to
So,
divorce, get out.
yeah, get out. But then what are the practical steps? Because, like you said, at one point you were homeless.
Yeah, I was.
Yes. So,
I
because
was.
I know that there are financial ramifications to it. You just
Mm,
can't get up one day and say you're going. So if there's
mm,
a woman that is listening and has a situation where the abuse is too much
mm,
and she has to at least step out
yeah.
to
Mm,
to protect herself and
mm,
to be alive
mm,
for her children,
right.
what steps should she take?
Okay, so once you've made that decision, remember it's about once you've made that decision, you a support network is so important. Who are the people around you? One of the things I avoided like a plague is a community where it's like men has come. You see them. And I avoided those like a plague. So your
Yes.
community is so important, even if it's one person. When I was homeless, I grew up with her. I called her. I was in the middle of the road with my two children who did not know what was going around them. And I gave her a call and I said, I have no place to sleep that night. And she was the one that said, come over to my house. Now, her house was not conducive to having anybody extra, but she opened her door to me. So I would always say, if you're a person of faith, pray that God would never leave us without help, right? Pray. There's always somebody who is able, who you can share with, who is able to take you in, even if it's temporal. So, what's your support network like? At least, even if it's one person. And women are very, very creative and industrious. And thankful. I always say that social media is a curse and a blessing. There's always something that you can do. Do you understand?
Yeah.
If it's online. So, if you're a person of faith, pray, there's always at least one person that's able to say, all right, then, if even if I can't um welcome you into my home, I can I'm able to financially support you to find somewhere temporal. Where I stayed for like 3, 4 months was not conducive at all in any shape or form. But at least we had a bed to sleep on. We had somewhere to watch the boys because I've got two boys and get them ready for school. It was not conducive. And that was where I started to pick myself up gradually, one step at a time. So my first question is, what is your support network like? Right? Is there one person that you can share your story that will hold you accountable, but also hold grace for you?
Yeah, I think the grace aspect is very important.
It is that's it. Somebody that can hold grace for you. It's so important, right? And that's always but if you say I don't have there's quite a few. There's a friend of mine in a former she runs a shelter for women fleeing domestic abuse, right, in Nigeria. And whenever I get somebody I'm working with in Nigeria, I always reach out to her because somehow she has connections, right? And she can say, okay, my hostel is full. It's not a hostel, it's more like a whole house. But somehow I can connect you with people or someone who at least will be able to support you temporarily until you start to gradually get your footing back into normalcy. But
And
sadly, sometimes women they come after a while, the man will be texting and phoning and whatever, and they'll go back to the same situation. The cycle continues. So there's also that aspect to consider because we're complex beings, aren't we?
yeah, that's because a lot of times, like when you look at like it's better for you to stay in the known than
Hmm.
for you to stay in the unknown. At least in the known, at least you know you're not paying rent. At least there's
Hmm.
food, and you can kind of like get accustomed. Some people get accustomed. At least they say, at least I just know say at least in they pay the school fees, in they
Yeah.
provide food, no only beating. Ah,
Right.
I will endure, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So that's
So
what I'm saying. Choose your hard. Choose your hard. Choose your non-negotiables. You have to
yeah.
make that personal decision yourself. Yeah.
Now I want to talk about the children again.
Okay.
are the practical solutions to protect your children and the mental health?
Okay, so if that's the tough one, especially when they're in that environment and where the abuse is habitual and it is unpredictable. It is so hard because they are there in the situation.
Yeah.
When, yeah, they're seeing it. Like my friend whose son just hugged and said, "Mom, I'm so sorry you're having to go through this, all of this, right?" And I do worry about her children growing up in later life. But for the children, why are you laughing?
And sorry, somebody wrote this. They said, not every man and women,
No,
not every man and woman. She said, this is a comment from someone. She said, not every man and woman that are living together, that are husband and wife, most of them are weapons fashioned against each other.
no. She's right.
I
She's
love
right.
it.
She is right. She is absolutely right. A lot of marriages are so barren. They just, the matters will just be flatmates, right? Because this. Let me tell you something before I continue answering that question. I have people reach out to me privately, and they will go in all kinds of stuff about their husbands and blah 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 blah, and how but he bought them a car, all of that, right? And then
Mhm,
they will go and they'll tell you how they're the ones paying the school fees, they're the ones, feeding him, giving him money. Some women do that, right?
mhm.
They feed him, they give him money to keep him going, or the one carrying the family. And then I'll go online and see one post and they say it's a single parent, and the same people will go and join issues with people cussing this person out. I'm like, they're no different from your
So, which
situation.
tells me that this social media is a problem.
It is. It is. It is a big
There's
problem.
a lot of
Oh
pretense
yeah.
around social media.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
if you follow social media, you go buy.
Absolutely. Don't read everything with a pinch of salt because things are never as they are. Anyway, but going back to the children, the question about the children. If you One thing I did that has really helped my children, and I thank God for that, was that I never spoke bad about their father. Never.
Okay.
Um, and it was hard. Sometimes I have to bite my tongue, right? But I never said anything negative. So, like, even as of last year, there were still things coming against me. And I only heard this from my other son that they went out and the dad was, saying, your mother did, your mother did, your mother. And my older son was like, if you talk about anymore about my mom like this, I'm not going to see you again. Because I didn't. But they think that you talk. That's the thing about relationship, because that's part of the trauma that children kind of inherit when both parents are feeding, because they try to use the children as
As the weapons, as
I'm
the
telling you,
bait.
and that is so sad because you have to think about the outcome. Children do not ask to be born, so you have to think about the outcome. And I think that's where parents get really selfish when they use the children as bait against each other, right? To hurt
Mhm.
each other because they're hurting, because hurting people hurt. But if you can be the one that is not speaking anything, it's hard. It's not easy. But those children, by God's grace, will grow up, right? And they'll be
Mhm.
able to see that not only one person they mad, one person is okay. So, and children of these days, your children are here and they're more vocal than we were.
Hey, see, I have four. Eh?
You strong,
The
go for.
three of them are the Nigerian, but this other one here, the last one, 10 years younger, older, she's 10 years younger. That one, Jane, what do they call them again? Gen
Gen
Z.
Z.
Hey, I told you what she told me that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Talk, oh. I said, which kind of pikin you be? She will talk her mind. So yes, I think that yeah, these
Mm.
people they will speak their mind.
And
I
speak
want
their
to ask you
mind.
one more question.
Right.
What are the steps to build, to heal and rebuild a healthy future?
Oh, I love this
How?
question. I love this question so much. I think you have to extend grace to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing for me that I did was to forgive yourself and forgive the other person. And that's a journey in itself. You have to operate from a platform of forgiveness for yourself. Forgive yourself for the mistake. It takes two to tango, right? So you probably there's a part you blame somehow. So even if it's marrying the wrong person, whatever it is, and we are so guilt-ridden, aren't we? So forgiveness is always a key. And look at yourself and acknowledge where you are. I did that. Acknowledge you are. And that was at the time. Girl, you're broke. Hmm? Girl, girl, you had debt. You are broke. You know, it's not only that you're broke, but you have debt as well.
You don't get shingbai for pocket.
I did not have she. I did not even go to use my car. It was so funny. Like some of my friends had,
How that confuses me, right? You had 2 degrees, you had a house, you
I
were
had,
doing well as a
I
single
was,
person.
I was doing very well as a single person, but now we had to sell the house for business that we're meant, not even in my name, oh, business, the other person's name, right?
Sorry. Whoa, this Niger Delta Port Harcourt girl just came out. Excuse me. Sorry, I thought I'm supposed to ask you a question. You get house, you buy house,
We had to,
you
it has
sell
to
the
be
house for another person business.
to invest business that did not,
You see the money for the business.
I don't see money for business, no
So
payment
the way
for
I
business.
shouted Jesus,
My dear, the story deep, but it's okay. We are better. God has redeemed us. So like, so I didn't have it. I
I'm
had debt.
sorry.
I had
That
debt.
reaction.
You know this thing, IVA, involuntary, whatever they call it. I had to go into that because I had debt. Because the
Mhm.
business, it was the money was taking it must have, so it was in my name also to go and start business. So I had this huge debt. I had two children looking up to me. I was homeless. I had no
So
money.
you had to service the debt as well. For
That's because I was like, ah, it's married now. You can always, somehow, things. So I had that. So I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive the ex-husband. And I had to say, this is I had to like look at myself in the mirror one day and say, girl, this is where you are now. But in the
mm,
midst of doing that,
acknowledging
yeah, you
present.
acknowledge the present, but also in acknowledging the present, you tell yourself, but this is not where I would be forever. That is so important to reframe your story. Remember, I said to you that I never referred to myself as a single parent. I always said I was parenting with the Holy Ghost. That was so powerful for me because I now says, all right, so I'm parenting with the Holy Ghost. So where do we go from now, Lord? It's so important to acknowledge where you are, but also to have that hope that things are going to change. Not all at once. Yes, there's been loss, but take little bite steps of change. Look at your issue, decide which one you're going to tackle today, decide which one you're going to tackle tomorrow. And the good thing about it was that because of the way it happened, for some people, divorce is like disease, yeah, it can catch people. So I had a lot of people leave me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Do you understand? Like, I had a
Mm.
lot of people, like friends. These are people that we used to eat together. They'll come to your house. A lot of people left. But looking back now, it's okay. I have new friends, but some people stayed, right,
Mm.
throughout the journey. I remember when my name was mud, because it's always women now. It's always when my name was complete mud. People used to avoid me. Like when I take my children to school, these are friends, my correct friends. They will look away like they don't see you coming. They'll cross the road. But there was Obi Ohen. I'll never forget Obi. Obi Ohen. She heard the rumors. She heard the stories. I knew she heard the story because the way she hugged me at the school gate that day meant that she heard. So I was just sitting there with my
I
children.
feel so emotional. Sometimes I cry.
I used to cry, but I was standing at the school gates with my children, so lonely, so lonesome. Depression was coming, was knocking, smiling at me like, you better open, I'm coming anytime. What's your own? Well, because all my friends had deserted me now. So I was holding on to my children for the school bell to ring, right? My friends, my so-called former friends, because when you drop your children at school, like people you'll be gisting with, I'll hold my children and hold your hand. I'll never forget that. My oldest son is 24. So you can imagine, and that was primary school. So you can imagine how that she just came, she looked at me and she just hugged me. She said, it's okay. The cry I cried that day. And that's what God does. God will raise somebody for you, somebody that will see
And she's still
beyond.
with you.
During COVID, when my cupboards were empty, I was like, hey, I don't get cow. These children hunger. What do you go do for hunger? She called me and says, are you home? I said, yeah. She came, she brought a big bag of rice, 12 cans of pasta, everything that we ate for like a good 2-3 weeks. So today so you have to have, if you ask God, he will send you like, Bible calls it the iron on the earth that would hold you. She's married though, happily married in her own marriage, right? Comfortable, oh. But that hug said so much to me that day. Because and today she's still my friend. It was years later that she told me that somebody actually brought the gist of the marriage that scattered to her house. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you need to ask for, at least even if it's one person that is saying to you, I'm going to walk this journey with you, right? But now, a few years later, I met one of my friends that ate in my house, slept in my house. I cooked, I turned the eba for the person, made the soup, they ate with their children. But when that thing happened, everything flew. So one day, I was in city center and I met her. And by then I've been working on myself. I've been to therapy. I'm working on my forgiveness. So I was kind of jolly. And she started to cry when she saw me. And I panicked. I thought something had happened. I said, what happened? She said, I am so sorry that I did not call you throughout that season. I was like, that's okay. In my mind, I was like, it's okay. I won't talk to you again. What's my own? She says, no, my husband told me not to contact you. My man and say, your husband tell you, say you obeyed your husband, but you were coming to see my earring don't fall off. I said, I gist you.
This story.
The story don't sweet, mama, your earring fall off. So what I'm saying is find your people. Ask God for your people, right? That's part of the step you have to take because they're the people that will speak life into you on
Right.
days when life just beats you down. Life will, the people that are going to pray with you.
How did they say it in
Even
Igbo?
I can't even
You
remember that one again. So yeah. So I had God bless him with a good support network. So I had Obi. I had Ife Sinachi. I think you hear me mention her. She's one of my good. All these people are married people, who not single people, mind you, with their own husband happy, right? People who I don't know, God will just send them. Maybe the days I look at my fridge, there's no food. Somehow
hmm.
they will just text me and say, I've just dropped 50 pounds in your account. I say, hey. Then I'll go and use it to buy milk, the basic for the boys. Boys, they chop now before it's like boom, boom. But you always, so that is some of the practice. Have your people. 1, 2 people. You don't need a lot of people. But
No,
people
you don't.
don't. People who have your back. Who will see you beyond your mess.
Hmm.
It's so important, right? And people who you can cry to. By the days you want to rant, you can go and rant to them. And they will not tell you men are scum, but they will say, it's okay. Come, give me a hug. Come, let me give you a hug. Should I buy you Chinese?
Wow. Wow. So if there's any woman who is listening to you today, and is experiencing a difficult marriage,
Hmm.
what would you say to her?
I would say pray first, yeah? Maybe the person has been praying and fasting as well. I would say have a conversation with God, right? Have a conversation with God before any person else, right? Because we're all human beings, and human beings will come with their own suggestions and what you should do. But
Yeah.
Keep that conversation with God going. And the conversation is not, it's just, my prayers then were really, really simple. These days I'm like, I used to go, God, help me. Jesus, what should I do? Lord, I'm desperate. Lord, I want to cry. Lord, what is simple prayer, but from the heart?
Yeah.
That's the place to start because God is a God of heart. So when you have those prayer moments, God will point you in the right direction. Somehow He will send help your way. I was, before we started having this conversation, I was looking at the journey of myself and my children from when they were both under 5 until now 24 and 22.
They were
Working,
young.
they're working, well balanced. We have a beautiful relationship. My first son came out with a first class degree. I know he's an adventurer. He's flying everywhere. He just said to me, Mom, I'm going to Japan next month. And I'm not paying for that. When I look at our journey, for every step, when I got stuck, that was help. There were also resources online. There's the praying, they call the praying child. And I met them at a point where my son who had one of the highest detention record in school. This my son that tomorrow they're going to treat me really well, like because his mother's son that he's asking, Mom, what do you want? So I went into the praying child. Auntie Funke, like I call her, and her husband. How they just had this mandate to pray for children. So they'll come online and they had like over 2,000 children on the prayer list, and I'll pray with them. And God was opening doors for me. But for me, there's a lady called Alfina by Faith. She lives in America. I partnered with her to pray for me. And also, there's always something to give back because giving back somehow is able to distract you from all the mess. So I now had my own community at the time because I have boys. I called it praying for the boy child. Then some of the people I invited were like, but I have a girl. I can't pray for one child, not pray for other. Okay, now praying parents. So we call it praying parents. And I led the group. And with the people, they would private send me a message about what they're going on in their life, their marriages or their children. Praying for them, connecting with them, encouraging with them, somehow opened the gateway for God to be sorting out my own matter for myself. So there's always something to give. In your giving, there's joy, right? Because I see changes. One of them sent me a photo a couple of years ago, and it just sent me a photo. I was like, hello, because I kind of disbanded the group after a while. And she said, thank you for the prayers we said then. This is my daughter. And she willingly came out and got baptized today. I want to thank you for the prayers then. So find a community that somehow you can serve because it will help you. You know, in the Bible, when God said was it Moses, God said, what's that in your hand? What's that in your
Mhm.
hand? Even if it's your tears, there's always something that we can give back. So even in that, my mess, I'll finish praying for them or encouraging them or, and I'll go out and
Then you
cry.
can't cry your own. So I think
We have to round up, right?
we have to round up. So guys, listen, I want to thank all of you for being
Thank
a part
you.
of this conversation. If you Yemisi is here. So if you found this conversation interesting, please follow me on my social media handles, Ibinabo Enebi Facebook, Ibinabo Enebi YouTube, Ibinabo Enebi LinkedIn. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ibinabo Enebi.
Lots of good stuff
And
there.
yeah, I got some good stuff. Yeah, here. And if anybody wants resources that you have, how would they contact you?
It's the same. Njide Egbuna Nwachinemelu on all the platforms. If anybody has any question, I want me to, whatever, yeah. It's the same name all across the platform. I show up. Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming.
Thank
And
you for the
yeah,
platform.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna call you. So bye everybody. I just want to thank everyone and everybody stayed, Sha. They stayed.